So, how did dyslexia come to being? Dyslexia was discovered more than 100 years ago by Dr. Berlin in 1887, but many people still do not understand what it is. Now, dyslexia is a learning difficulty that affects reading, spelling, and writing skills. This is due to difficulties identifying speech sounds and learning how they relate to letters and words. Dyslexia is also called a neurological condition. So, what do you mean by it being a neurological condition? Any neurological condition, anything neurological has to do with the nervous system. And the nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. Just that's the central nervous system. Sorry, let's drift a bit to science. That's the central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. Now, it should be noted that how did the brain come to being now? It should be noted that messages, when the body is responding to changes to stimulus, impulses are passed from, the receptors, like the part that is receiving the, whatever it is, the message to the spinal cord. The messages are received to the spinal cord, then taken into the brain for interpretation. The brain interprets everything. So dyslexia is more than reading, it's more than sound. Some people feel once we've already taught the child jolly phonics, identification of them, the letter sounds, it's all about that. No, dyslexia is a neurological condition, so it affects how the brain processes information. It's not just about, reading or writing, or it's just beyond that. It's not just about teaching. That is how the brain was designed. That is how the brain was wired. It was wired differently. So it's not the typical kind of brain. It should also be known that dyslexia formerly was called a disability, but it is no longer a disability. There are so many, works that have been done. And when we look at the various kinds of people that have had these conditions, people like Thomas Alva Edison that invented the light incandescent light bulb, Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, um, Graham Bells. You look at Elon Musk, you look at the likes of Muhammad Ali, you know that dyslexia is not a difficulty. It is not a disability, it's just a difficulty. Like I shared earlier before the real training began, I shared the story of Albert Einstein, that first, as he was growing up, he was not the Einstein, the genius that we always knew. He was regarded mentally, his parents thought he was mentally retarded. And even Thomas Edison, when he attended school, he was regarded as, addled, that is mentally ill, and he was asked to withdraw from school. But in spite of what they called them, you know, the difficulty, or at that time they saw it as a disability, in spite of all the things they went through, they were able to leave, footprints in the sands of time. That is to show us that dyslexia is not a disability. Look at Elon Musk today with Tesla. Look at Steve Jobs with the, Apple Incorporation. So many, you know, studies have come to show that dyslexia should be understood. There needs to be an awareness about dyslexia, because it's you know, a different way. It's a learning difference. It's a different way the brain processes information. So let's look at some facts about dyslexia. Dyslexia, number one fact is dyslexia is very common. About 1 out of 5 persons are dyslexic. This is the reason why we must, create awareness for this. Now, it is not a rare condition. It is very common. Since we say 1 in 5 persons is dyslexic, therefore, let's imagine a class of 15. Okay, let me give it a round figure. 20 learners. 4 out of those learners will be dyslexic. So it is not a thing, an Oyinbo thing. It is not an American thing. It is everywhere. So dyslexia is very common, but it's just a pity that there is not enough awareness amidst parents, schools worldwide. It's been there for like 100 years until now. It has not been embraced. That's because everybody is still thinking that there is a perfect way of thinking, and that is the neurotypical way. But the truth is, if anyone wants to make a difference in life, the person has to go, the path that is less, traveled. So if you look at the people who have been dyslexic, they took the path less traveled and made all the difference. So dyslexia is very common. You definitely have met so many people that are dyslexic, but because you you had no idea about it, so you did not know. So another thing is dyslexia is hereditary. It is passed on from one generation to another. That's why we call out to parents, most especially African parents, to come out. And there's this African thing that our parents never struggled in school. Nobody, they were always first. They were very good with math, with English. They were superb. But it's time for parents to be very transparent, most especially, and talk about their struggles with their children, with school administrators, and let them know that, yeah, I had the struggles in school. How can you help my child? So this is it. It's very common. It's passed on from one generation to another. So it's very common. It cannot be escaped. Then it's a neurological condition. I've explained what neurological means, and I'll do more here right now. Now it affects the way information is spoken. The brain, I spoke about the brain receiving impulses through the spinal cord. So when messages get to the brain would have to interpret it in a certain way. So in a neurological brain, in a dyslexic brain, the way words are spoken and written information is processed is quite different from the typical brain. It has nothing to do with the visual eyes, because sometimes we think a dyslexic might have high problem. It has nothing to do with the auditory, parts, maybe the ears. It has nothing to do with that. It is neurological. It has to do with the brain. Now, because it's very good for us to create awareness about this, because dyslexia affects memory and how things are organized in the person's brain. Since the brain is divided into two, now let's go this scientifically. The brain is divided into two parts, what they call the two hemispheres. Before there's a subdivision, you have the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. Now, normally, the dyslexic has the left part of the brain with low activity. The right part of the brain does the extra work. So the dyslexic brain is working super, on one side is working extra compared to the what? Neurotypical brain. That's what the dyslexic brain does. Now, this left part is responsible for the logical aspect of human thinking, reading, and word identification. Now, due to low activity on this left part, the brain of the dyslexic has to work harder using the right hemisphere. So that is, I've, explained broader the neurological part, facts about dyslexia. Okay, the third says dyslexia is different for everyone, hence the need for awareness. Dyslexia ranges from mild to severe to profound. So, because of that, It is very important. So the fact that you might have four dyslexics in your class, that's averagely, is even possible for in a class of 20, you will have about 10 dyslexics, because the truth is they cannot be spread out evenly. And maybe that's when you hear in the class that the teacher keeps saying, you guys in primary four, this latest, or you guys in grade five, you're so dumb. You don't reason. Like, why are you so slow? Why are you so sluggish? Why is this set so different? So that's because dyslexia range is different for everyone. It is important to understand the different levels of difficulties the learners will face. One person's dyslexia may be mild, while another would be, maybe experiencing immense difficulty. Like I said, dyslexia ranges from mild to severe to profound. So others may be having mild, it might not be noticeable, while some sets of people it might be really severe or profound, where the person will be having, difficulties in processing speed, phonological awareness, auditory processing, executive functioning, and working memory. So this explains the struggles the dyslexics face. Now, facts about dyslexia. The facts about dyslexia. The next fact, I think that's fact number 4. A screen assessment should examine all these areas, but even with children with mild dyslexia, we need support in school. The best way to, detect dyslexia is through a screen assessment. And during the screen assessment, the birth history of a child will have to be, will have to be taken into place. Like, to be able to know the appropriate accommodation and the resources to give that kind of child. So, irrespective, either the child has mild dyslexia, profound dyslexia, or severe dyslexia, it's very important for for awareness to be created, so that, if because even those with the mildest, like the slightest dyslexia, they would need support in school. They would not be the typical child. That is where you hear a teacher say, you make silly mistakes. That's because the person is showing, or the learner is showing, mild signs, some signs of dyslexia. That is it.